Hello, welcome to the 7th quest devlog, and in this video I'm going to be adding giant mushrooms that smash the crap out of you, a giant steaming bucket of mushroom soup, bubbles, fixing a memory leak, and finally adding some checkpoints. After the last devlog I released, I went ahead and decided to take a break for a couple of weeks. During that break, I was thinking about my game and I came to the conclusion that it's actually really boring. So naturally I was thinking of what other games do to make them fun, and I remembered something that Mario does. In every single Mario level they add a new mechanic to try to keep it fresh. So I decided to totally not steal that mechanic and use it for my own game. First thing I'm gonna be adding is a giant mushroom that drops down and smashes the crap out of you. So how these guys work is whenever you're about to go under them, they have a little shake and then they try to smash you. After a few seconds, you'll go back up to where they were originally and wait for their next victim. And before anybody says anything, yes, I basically just copied the stones from Mario that drop down, but it's such a simple mechanic that I really don't feel that bad about it. This guy was actually really hard to draw for some reason. I think it was because I was trying to make it 4x4 tiles big, but after I shrank it down to 2x2, it was a lot easier to draw. Here's a really cool example of one of the things I can do with it. They're pretty easy to avoid, but it adds a lot more life into the game and it desperately needs it. The other new mechanic that I added was these bubbles. I got this idea from, well, Shovel Knight, but these are a lot different. With these, whenever you get close to them, they suck you in and then you're forced to stay in the bubble until it pops. And once it pops, you have full control over the player again. I'm not really sure about how it looks. To me, it just seems too big, but I don't really know how to work around that. So if you have any suggestions, leave a comment. Here's a really cool example of something you can do with it. Now, to take a break from adding new mechanics, I decided to make a few more ground tiles with some mushrooms and flowers on them. It took about an hour and a half, but it turned out really good, and I think it makes the game feel a lot more live, at least in my opinion. The next thing I added was a giant pot of boiling mushroom stew. This one is a lot different than the other mechanics that I've added today. The reason this one's different than the others is because instead of the player actually having to interact with it, it's set on a timer, and after a couple of seconds it dumps soup everywhere. Many of you have already probably guessed that you probably should not go try tasting the soup. Now this one actually took the longest to make out of all the other ones, believe it or not. I was having a really hard time trying to find a really good and effective way to spawn in the soup game objects. First I tried spawning them in separately through the animator, but I kept getting some really weird sprite layering issues. So I messed with it for a little while, but I could not find an obvious way to fix it, so I decided to sit on it for about an hour. After about an hour, I had a really big brain moment. How about instead of spawning in multiple soup game objects and trying to get them to line up and layer correctly, why not just spawn in one object and have an animator on it that enables soup objects and moves them straight down? Now, it seems like a really redneck solution, but it works for now, so I think I'm gonna stick with it. Now, a really big thing that makes my game suck is whenever you die, you have to start completely over. And of course, that is extremely frustrating. So the way I want to solve this problem is with checkpoints. So the way I was planning on implementing it was whenever you walked by a checkpoint, it would detect how much loot and coins you have and put it in a temporary save file. Then once you die, you get teleported back to the last checkpoint and it refills all your coins and loot and revives all the enemies that died previously. Now the reason that I tried it and thought that it was a good idea was because I am a complete and utter idiot. After about 2 days of trying to get it to work, I finally gave up and tried to find a different way to do it. So I looked up other videos of how other people make checkpoints, and I clicked on Blackthorn Prod's video. And about 15 seconds into the video, I realized that I am actually really stupid. All I really needed was a game object that detects how many coins and loot you have whenever you pass a checkpoint. After I watched his video, I tweaked it to fit my game, and it works way better than the system that I came up with previously. Moral of the story, don't overcomplicate things and kinda see what other people did before you try to reinvent the wheel. After I finished making the checkpoints, I realized that I had a massive problem. When I was playtesting my game, I looked at Task Manager and I saw that my memory usage was going up. At first I thought it was just loading stuff into memory, but just to make sure, I left it for about 20 minutes. But when I came back, it was using 13 gigabytes of memory. It was at that point that I realized that I had a massive problem. At first I thought that the issue was that I had a memory leak. But after about a day of troubleshooting, I found out that it was actually the garbage collector taking up all the RAM. So the next thing I wanted to try was if I got the issue in things like the main menu, or if I only got it when I was in the level with the player. So I tested level 1 and I still had the problem, so I went ahead and moved on to the next level. In the next level, I walked up to the old man and I started talking to him, and for some reason the memory was not going up. So after a couple of minutes of thinking about it, I realized that it had to be the player script. The reason I knew it was because whenever you talk to the old man, it disables the player script so that the player can't move. After a couple of hours of troubleshooting that script, I found the issue. It was these two stupid lines of code. After I removed them, it seemed to solve the problem. So if you played the demo last time I released a quest devlog, you probably saw that some of the mushroom platforms and one thick tile platforms did not look quite right. So I went ahead and fixed that issue so that it was consistent with everything else in the game. In the last devlog, I asked you guys what you think of this bridge, and someone suggested that it would look a lot better if I removed the top part of it. So I went ahead and did that, and I agree. I think it looks way better than it did before. And it also eliminates a big problem I had with it, where players could walk on part of the broken bridge, but now since I made it shorter also, it fixes that problem. So a massive thanks to Rage123 for suggesting that. So if any more of you have any suggestions for anything, please leave a comment. I read every single comment and I find them extremely helpful. So that's gonna do it for this devlog. Next devlog, I'm gonna be adding even more gameplay features, so get subscribed for that. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a sacrifice to the YouTube overlords by liking this video. Also, if you want to try Quest out for yourself, there's a download in the description. Here is the last Quest devlog in case you missed that, and on the right here is the Quest devlog playlist in case you want to watch all the Quest devlogs in order. So thank you very much for watching and have a good day.